And we are back with one final episode of the Supernovas franchise mode for FHM 8s. That is right, this is going to be the last episode, at least for FHM 8. Who knows, the Supernovas may return for FHM 9, but for right now, I think it is time to move on. And what I wanted to do, of course, was to just go over the team history, and I also wanted to do a little bit of a team ceremony for all the best players over the course of this GM mode. So let's take a look at the team history now. Over the course of 11 seasons, we won the Cup 3 times, had 4 finals appearances, we had 6 playoff appearances, 1 President's Trophy, and 1 division title. Our best record was the 2029-2030 season when we went 60, 18, and 4 for 124 points, and of course that was the year that we won the President's Trophy and the division title. And of course we also won the Cup that year. Now let's take a look at the leaderboards. For career records, for the most goals, assists, and points, you have Braden Yeager leading in all 3 categories. Yeager with 261 goals, 374 assists, and 635 points. Not bad. Not bad at all. And how many games is that? That is in 673 games played. The plus-minus leader is Jacob Chikrin with plus 168 on his career here in Nova Scotia. Face-off leader is Braden Yeager with 5,120 face-offs won. Hits, Ivan Lodnia leads the way with 670. Penalty minutes, David Juracek with 323. Power play goals, Braden Yeager with 56. Shorthanded goals, Linus Eriksson with 18. And then games played, Ivan Lodnia with 676. And now for single season records, Braden Yeager with the most goals in a season with 49 during the 2027-28 campaign. And Braden Yeager also with the most assists in a season, 71 during the 2029-2030 campaign. And Dominic Peter had the most points that year with 115. Certainly had himself a year that year. That to be fair, that entire team was just incredibly overpowered. So I'm honestly, I'm not surprised that we had multiple players with 100 points or more that year. And during that same season, Ivan Provorov had a plus-minus plus 77. During the 2022-23 season, so very early on in the existence of the franchise, JG Pajot had 721 faceoffs won. That's a single season record. And during the 2027-28 season, Ivan Lodnia had 118 hits. During the 2030-31 season, David Juracek had 61 penalty minutes. And during that same season, Braden Yeager had 19 power play goals. During the 2029-30 season, Linus Eriksson had 6 shorthanded goals. And during the 2023-24 season, of course, games played, that is going to be a tie between several players. So it just has Pearson with 82 games, but obviously there's a lot more players with 82 games played, at least I would hope. Because, with injuries and whatnot, you never know. Pearson may be the only one with 82 games played. And goaltender career records. Sergei Ivanov leads the way in every single category. Wins, losses, save percentage, shutouts, games played, and goals against average. He has every single one of those in the career statistics. 229 wins, 125 losses, a 912 save percentage, 16 shutouts, 394 games played, and a 293 goals against average. Now, over in the single season records, things are looking a little bit different. Ivanov still has the record for wins, losses, and games played. However, for save percentage, Jeremy Swayman actually holds the record with a 920 during the 2025-26 season. Although, if I'm not mistaken, Ivanov did have a season where he also had a 920 save percentage, but that was only in 27 games. Actually, Swayman only played 26 games that year too, so it looks like that is a tie, actually, between Swayman and Ivanov. I guess the game just wanted to give Swayman a little mention there, because, Ivanov has sort of taken over most of the categories here for goaltending. So a little nod to Swayman there for the time that he spent with us. Obviously, he wasn't the greatest, but he did have his bright spots. He did have some success here, so nice little nod to him. And most shutouts, Ron Paris with 4 shutouts in a season. So even though Ivanov had the most in his career, he apparently did not ever get more than 4. So, once again, another situation where the game is just giving it to somebody else, I suppose, because Ivanov did in fact have 4 during the 2028-29 season, but it just chose to put Paris in there instead. I guess because maybe it's more recent. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to try to question the logic of this game. And then you have Ivanov with 69 games played during the 2029-30 season, and Jeremy Swayman during the 2025-26 season with a 271 goals against average. Now let's check out some of the game records. The most goals in a game, Ivan Lodnia with 5 on October 29th, 2029. And then earlier that same year, you have Lodnia with 6 assists in a game on February 14th, 2029. And then Lodnia, during that same game, had 7 points. That is also a record. Braden Yeager with 3 power play goals on March 31st, 2028. Timothy Liljegren had a hat trick on December 23rd, 2027. That is a record for goals by a defenseman in one game. David Jiricek had 4 assists on January 28th, 2031. Let's see, what other notable records? Sam Montembeault on October 8th, 2022. So during the very early stages of the franchise when we were not great defensively. I mean, the team was never great defensively per se, but that was when we were at a particular low point, obviously due to our lack of talent. Sam Montembeault made 61 saves that game, so good on him. Let's see, what else? Otto Stenberg with 14 shots in a single game on February 24th, 2032, so just this past season, actually. You have 11 blocked shots for Brett Pesce on October 10th, 2023. 8 hits for Ivan Lodnia on January 15th, 2028. 57 shifts for Matt Dumba on November 15th, 2022. So he definitely put in the ice time on that team. Aaron Kiviharju with 29-25 of total minutes played on March 31st, 2031. Yeager with 20 faceoffs won on November 13th, 2031. 8 goals allowed for Darcy Kemper on April 2nd, 2024. Highest plus minus goes to Braden Yeager with a +6 on February 14th, 2029. That, of course, was the game where he got 7 points. And now let's take a look at the playoff records. Dominic Peter with 3 goals in a single game on April 16th, 2031. Max Nemestikov with 4 assists on May 8th, 2031. And Braden Yeager with 4 points April 12th, 2026. Linus Eriksson had 2 short-handed goals on April 25th, 2032. So just this past playoff run. Let's see, 62 saves by Sergei Ivanov on May 24th, 2030. So even well into our success days, we did have the occasional game where we had to have our goaltender make 60-plus saves. Let's see, Jacob Chychrun with 11 blocked shots during this past playoffs, May 3rd, 2032. Aaron Kiviharju with the most minutes played, once again, with 31-43. During the 2031 season. And the highest plus minus goes to Ryan Graves with a +5 on June 1st, 2026. Now let's check out some of the rookie records. So most goals, Otto Stenberg with 4 during the 2026 campaign. Ivan Lodnia with 4 points during the 2023 campaign. Jiricek played a lot as a rookie with 28:05 of ice time on March 1st, 2024. Oh, actually that was... Oh no, this is during the regular season. It just didn't switch over from the game records when I was still in the playoffs. So now we'll switch over to the playoffs. For points, Aaron Kiviharju had 3 points during the 2026 season. He also had the most shots with 11 in a single game on April 12th, 2026. And Nicholas Fascia had the highest plus-minus rating in a single game for rookie on April 12th, 2026 with a +4. And the final career stats for our GM, he has 917 games played, 481 wins, 362 regulation losses, and 74 overtime or shootout losses. 3 Stanley Cups, and a final score of 213. Well, actually, that's not including this season because we haven't rolled over the calendar yet. So I guess I'll do that right now just to see what our final score is. And we may as well do one last league awards ceremony. Why not? For the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Maurice Richard, you have Connor Bedard. All right, let's take one final look at him here. Let's see. Yeah, 138 points. Yep, that makes sense. Gabe Velarde wins the Lady Byng. Nathan McKinnon wins the Bill Masterton. Alex DeBrincat wins the Mark Messier Leadership Award. Bryant Marks wins the Jennings Trophy. And for the Hart, between Bedard, Catton, and Matthews, you have Connor Bedard, of course. Conn Smythe goes to Quinn Hughes of Vancouver with 20 points in 21 games played. For the Calder, between Kandorov, Horton, and Moorhead, goes to Kenton Horton of Arizona. And the Norris, between Dahlin, Hughes, and Fox, you have Dahlin. The Selke, between Gould, Voronkov, and Wilk, you have Gould. Florida with 51 points in 82 games played. For the Vezina, between Farrell, Marks, and Rossi, you have Jordan Farrell of San Jose with a .925 save percentage and 7 shutouts. Wow. Executive of the Year, between Adams, Johnson, and Sullivan, it is Kevin Adams of Buffalo. And the Jack Adams, between Langley, Nazardine, and Blashill, you have Dean Langley of Buffalo. And the final season summary for the GM mode. For the positive categories, we reached the playoffs, we had a winning season and a winning percentage of 600 or better, but nothing else. No negative categories, of course, so that means our total season score is 23, and the total career score adds up to be 236. And now what I want to do is a little team awards ceremony to highlight the best of the best that have played or coached for your Supernovas over the years. So, best coach, gotta give it to my guy, Mike Sullivan. He was fantastic over the past couple of years that he's been here. I mean, he brought 2 Stanley Cups back to back. Like, from the moment he came on board, made us a 60-win team. And then even after that, when we weren't as good the next year, still managed to get it done and win the Stanley Cup. Of course, this past year was a little bit rough. During the playoffs, we got outed in the second round. But still, great accomplishment for Mike Sullivan. And when you take a look at the rest of the coaches that we have had, which include Rod Brindamore and Paul Maurice, I would say he's definitely the best out of the 3. Obviously, Brindamore had more regular season wins, but that's probably just due to the fact that he was here longer. And it's not like Brindamore's teams weren't skilled. I mean, Brindamore, he was a good coach too, because he brought us a Stanley Cup, but after that cup, it sort of fell off a little bit, and we just started to not simulate as well. Of course, there was 1 year under him where I believe we had missed, it was the year after we had won the cup, actually, where we had missed the playoffs, just barely. We had 95 points, so it wasn't a bad season, and we also had plenty of injuries during the second half of that season, so I don't necessarily blame him for that. And our team just couldn't recover from those injuries, unfortunately. But the 2 years after that, where we did make the playoffs and we had him as our coach, it wasn't the run that we were on was not impressive, because I believe that was like 2 sweeps in a row where I think the 2027-28 season we got swept out of the playoffs, and then the following year we did as well, so that didn't leave too good of an impression on me, and his contract was up for renewal anyway, so I figured why not go in the direction of someone else, and that someone else happened to be Mike Sullivan, and that was probably one of the best decisions that was made in this GM mode, if I'm being honest. And now for positions, best center, I mean, there's no debate here. It's got to be Braden Yeager. He holds the record for most goals, most assists, most points. There's no debate. Best overall center, Braden Yeager by far. Best left winger, I got to give it to Dominic Peter. He was fantastic, particularly during the 2029-30 season, with 115 points, 45 goals, 70 assists. But it wasn't just that made him the best left winger in my mind. It was also the consistency of the amount of points that he brought to the table every year after the 2025-26 season, when he started getting point per game seasons. 64 points in 68 games during his 21-year-old season, 89 points the following season, 29 points the season after. Of course, he had a major injury that year, but regardless of his injury, it looks like that still would have been a bit of a down year for him anyway, with the only 29 points in 40 games played and the minus 15 as well, so it looks like he wasn't doing as well that year. But every year besides that year, he was very consistent and just an overall offensive threat. So I could not have been happier with his performance. And not to mention, of course, he is third all-time for points. Best right winger, I honestly kind of struggled with this one. It might seem like the obvious choice is Lotnia, and he is the choice. He is our best right winger of all time. But I think that was more of a seniority thing, because honestly, I think an honorable mention in this case would be Nikita Onishko. He has one heck of a future ahead of him, 4.5-star talent, and he is just consistently putting up phenomenal numbers, especially the past 2 seasons. 80 points in 63 games played, 69 in 47 games played. Of course, he had a couple of brutal injuries there the past 2 seasons, which shouldn't be a surprise for this game, but still, he was incredible for the past 3 seasons, and he has, like I said, one heck of a future ahead of him. And I think if he continues on in a Supernovas jersey, he should pretty easily pass Ivan Lodnia for his total points. Because of the pace he's going, he's got 287 points in 293 games played currently. And he's only played 4 seasons for us so far. He doesn't look like he's slowing down. So if this GM mode went on longer, like if, for example, if we were to continue it in FHM 9, I just get the feeling that Onishko is probably going to blow past Lodnia in total points, maybe even Jaeger. Like, Onishko could be, when everything is said and done with his career, he may end up being the highest point scorer in franchise history. Because as of right now, I believe he has the best points per game average out of any of these players. So he very well could break points records, even from guys like Jaeger. So yeah, you can see why I had a bit of a tough time debating that. I mean, obviously it's still Lodnia, but honorable mention to Nikita Onishko for sure for the best right winger in franchise history. Best left defenseman, I would say, is Aaron Kiviharju. I mean, he's one of those situations where he just got better as his career went on. 37 points his rookie year, 26 points the year after, so a little bit of a down year compared to the year prior. But from then on, it was just constant improvement. 42 points during his 21-year-old season, 42 points the year after. Of course, he wasn't as good with the plus-minus that year. Although grade-wise, he did improve. Went from a 63 to a 64 that year. The following year, he had a 20-goal season for the first time in his career, 58 points. Then the season after that, 54 points, so a little bit of a regression, but not too much. And then the season after that, this past season, 73 points in 82 games, almost a 30-goal season for a defenseman. So I think the future is bright for him. He's still only 26, but I would say he's got to be our best left defenseman in franchise history so far. Like I said, who knows? We may make a return to the Supernovas in FHM 9, because that's just how much I am personally attached to this team. Like this team, it's got to be my favorite custom GM mode that I've done so far, and not just because of the success, but the overall brand of the team as well. It's really like the Nova Scotia Supernovas. I don't think I could have come up with a better name than that, honestly. Like, this team is going to stick with me for a while. It's a very memorable team. So, once again, best left defenseman, definitely Aaron Kiviharju with 332 career points in 503 games played. Best right defenseman, gotta be David Jiricek, right above Kiviharju in the total points category. Jiricek, he's not, I wouldn't say he's as talented as Kiviharju is offensively, but Jiricek was always getting solid grades all around, offensively and defensively, and he was always on track for 40 or 50 points per season. So just a very consistent right-handed defenseman who is always good offensively, and you know is going to be reliable defensively. And of course, he was drafted here, so he's been here his whole career. So I really could not overlook him as the best right defenseman in franchise history. And of course, it doesn't hurt that he also has the most points for any defenseman in franchise history with 345. Although granted, if we were to advance any further into the GM mode, I have a feeling Kiviharju would pass him pretty quickly. Best goaltender, I mean, it's got to be Ivanov, right? It's got to be Ivanov because, I mean, the best save percentage with the most games played by far the most wins in franchise history. Like, it's not even close. 229 when the next one down, Swayman only has 80. The most shutouts in franchise history, the best goals against average with a 2.93. I mean, yeah, there's really no debating it. It's Ivanov. Ivanov is the best goaltender. And not only all of that, but he was, I would say, the only goaltender who was pretty consistent throughout his career. Nothing less than a 908 save percentage ever. I mean, not even during his junior years. You know, 921 save percentage, 919, 946, 910, 919, 914, 911, 920, 914, 912, 908, 913, 908 this past season. So he was just Mr. Consistency out there for us, and he was able to bring home quite a few wins as a result. And obviously, 3 Stanley Cups as well. But yeah, best goaltender, Sergei Ivanov, no doubt. Now, I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge the defensive players on our team as well. And I think the best defensive forward has to go to Linus Eriksson, because not only was he a mainstay on the penalty kill, he is also regularly getting better defensive grades than he has offensive grades. Eriksson, there he is. I mean, yeah, his defensive grade here is almost better than his offensive grade as a forward. And his offensive grade isn't bad either. It's a 67. His defensive grade is a 65. And I'm pretty sure he's done that consistently. I mean, I don't think there's any way to check it from the player history here, unfortunately, as we can only see the total career score. But still, I do believe that he was a big factor defensively as we take a look at his expanded stats. Great face-off taker with a 56.2 just this past season. 75 hits as well. He did give the puck away quite a bit, but that's the norm for forwards in this game. 21 block shots as well. And then as we take a look at the ice time, he did have a lot of shorthanded ice time. So like I said, a staple on the penalty kill. And I don't think that any other forward surpassed him defensively during the course of this GM mode. And he also, as we saw, has the record for most shorthanded goals. And obviously that's should be a given considering how much time he spends on the penalty kill. But with all that considered, I had to give best defensive forward to Linus Eriksson. Now, best defensive defender, I would have to give that to Jacob Chychrun. Not only because of his plus-minus being what it is most of the time, 168 for his career. He was just always ranking among the best defensive grades on our team. Even this past year, at 34 years of age, 73 defensive grade is the best on the team. Once again, another staple on the penalty kill, consistently spent over 100 plus minutes a season on the penalty kill, blocking hundreds of shots per season, rarely gave the puck away, taking the puck away a lot as well, as we see by his takeaway to giveaway ratios. I mean, he was phenomenal. So that is why he was my selection for best defensive defender in the franchise. Best rookie season, I would have to give to Otto Stenberg, because as we take a look at his history here, 72 points in 77 games during his rookie season, 38 goals, 34 assists, plus 17, 71 overall grade. He just came out of nowhere. He literally came out of nowhere. I think the season before he was maybe a 2-star ability playing in the AHL. Then the next year he comes up and jumps up to like a 3.5-star ability and just starts lighting the league on fire. So he's by far the best rookie performance that I've seen within the Supernovas GM mode. Best playoff performer, I was honestly, there was no way for me to decide on this one. So we have two best playoff performers, and it's between the two guys who you would expect, Nikita Onishko and Braden Yeager. They were both phenomenal. In almost every playoff game they played, they just led the charge every time. And for me personally, I just could not decide. I could not decide between the two of them because they both, in my opinion at least, had equal impact to the success of all of our recent playoff victories. As we take a look at Onishko here, like, see what I mean? I mean, Yeager may have had more points in total during each and every one of those playoffs, but Onishko, he kept pace with him. He really did. So I had to give it to both of them. Like, there was no, for me, there was no separation between these two. None. So best playoff performers, Onishko and Yeager. Team MVP, the player who I think we cannot do without. I mean, it's got to be Yeager. It has to be. He's 5-star ability now. He's just overall incredible. He's not only good offensively, but he's good defensively as well. Because as we see by his defensive grade, I mean, he had a better defensive grade this year than offensive grade. 72 defensive grade, 70 offensive. I mean, he's the complete package. So I don't think we could do without Braden Yeager, honestly. He is someone that the Supernovas need to keep around for his entire career. Something else I wanted to highlight, the best draft year that we had. So for me, it was between these three drafts. The 2022-23 draft, the 2023-24 draft, and the 2024-25 draft. Now, this draft had Kivi Harju, Eriksson, Zetterberg, Thibodeau, Doyle, Amin, Onishko, and Velikov. So this was certainly a very good draft, especially Nikita Onishko in the 4th round at pick number 100. As far as value goes, I would say that was the best overall pick that we made over the course of the GM mode, but I wouldn't say this was the best draft as a whole. The 2022-23 draft was certainly the most well-rounded because you had basically every pick here was a solid NHL player. I mean, Bystat not for us necessarily, and same for Delbel Belus, but they all turned out to be NHL potential talent. We just didn't have room for Bystat or Delbel Belus on our team. That's the only reason why we moved on from them. Lakari Mackey eventually moved on, same for Odelius and Ingram, and, so we didn't necessarily keep all the players from this draft, but nonetheless, it is the most well-rounded draft in that all of them were NHL players at one point. But I wouldn't say it's the best draft. You had Yurichak, you had Nemestikov, you had Ivanov. Those are the three notable names there, at least of players that are still on our team. So certainly a very good draft. But I think personally the best draft for me is the 2023-24 draft. It wasn't as deep as the 2022-23 drafts, and there wasn't necessarily a steal like there was with Onishko in the 2024-25 drafts. But what sells it for me, what sells this draft for me, Yeager, Stenberg, Peter, all in a row. Those three players, all first-line caliber players, taken 8th overall, 40th overall, and 52nd overall, all in the same draft. That's incredible. Obviously, we know Yeager, the points leader for our franchise. Stenberg with 439 points in 499 games played. He's real close to being... I was close to selecting him over Peter to be the best left winger on the team. But Peter's 498 points, plus the 115-point season he had, made him get the edge. But still, these three alone, in my opinion, make this the best draft for your Nova Scotia Supernovas, the 2023-24 draft. Now, one last thing that I like to do at the end of every GM mode is retire some numbers of players who I think are worthy. So first we'll do honored numbers, because there are actually a few honored numbers who didn't quite make the jersey retirement cut for me, but I still felt like needed to be up there in the honored numbers rafters. So the first honored number is going to be Dominic Peter, simply because, once again, the 115-point season, that was legendary. Can't overlook that. And obviously, I nominated him as our best left winger for a reason. He's just overall phenomenal, and I think he deserves to have his number honored. So there you go, Dominic Peter, number 16. The next honored number, I believe, is going to be Ivan Lodnia as number 27. I was close to deciding to retire his number altogether, but he just didn't quite make the cut. He certainly a very good leader, a very good player in general, always up there in the point totals, but I wouldn't say he had a legendary career. He's just a very, very good player, and for me personally, just below the cut of a jersey retirement. And the third honored number is going to be the man, the myth, the legend, the guy in goal, Sergei Ivanov. Oh my, there are 4 Sergei Ivanovs. I believe it's the 2004 one that we were talking about here. Number 31, just very solid, basically at all times, regular season, playoffs, doesn't matter. He's consistent all the time, and he managed to, of course, win 3 Stanley Cups, and that is no small feat. And of course, most of our main roster did that as well, but still, he was a huge reason why we were able to get there in the first place. And once again, another situation where I was considering his jersey for retirement, but he wasn't anything. He wasn't a spectacular goaltender. He's just, the way I see it with Ivanov is he came to play every night for sure, and he was consistent year in, year out. But he wasn't anything phenomenal as far as his stats go. Like, he had one season where he had a .920 save percentage, and that was over 27 games or something. But besides that, .914 save percentage was around his average, and that's still very good. I'm not discounting that. That was very good. So once again, another number where I was borderline on putting him into jersey retirements, but I figured jersey retirements, it has to be a very exclusive club of players who not only have tenure, but who have done amazing things. Like, if Ivanov had anything less than a 910 save percentage on average, I would have been pretty disappointed with him, to be honest. But he obviously did manage to keep that up and managed to go a little bit above that. Just not something that I would truly call franchise changing. You know, obviously he played his role, he did it well, but not well enough to get the jersey retirement, in my opinion. And that leads us into the one jersey retirement that we are going to have for this GM mode, and it's got to be none other than Brayden Yager, number 29. He has done some, he not only leads our team in most goals, most assists, most points, has had 100-point seasons before, and if it wasn't for a couple of injuries that he's had in the past 2 seasons, the past 3 seasons would have been 100-point seasons for him. As we add him to the retired numbers, and then take a look at his profile once again, yeah, if you take away the injuries that he had, he was on pace for 100 points each of the past 3 seasons. For me, that is just incredible. He was close to 100 points as well during his 22-year-old season, 97 points that year. Of course, he had the off year in between where he only had 54 points the next year, but that's basically the only down year he's had ever. You know, every other year it's been either a constant improvement or just flat out domination. And I know his attributes don't say it, but he is phenomenal defensively in his role. He had a better defensive grade than he did offensive grade this year. He's only 5-star player, and he's not even that bad of a contract either. Currently, he's signed to a $6.2 million contract for the next 5 years. For a player his caliber, that is a steal. And he's only 27. He's still got a pretty good chunk of his career ahead of him. So I had to give him the jersey retirement because, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. There's no other player like this on our team right now besides maybe Onishko. And like I said before, for a jersey retirement, I don't only want the numbers, but I also want tenure. There's a number of things that I'm looking for. And for me, Brayden Yager fulfills everything I'm looking for out of a jersey retirement caliber performance. So yes, even though all those players are still playing technically, I just like retiring numbers at the end of a GM mode to signify the importance that those players had over the course of the GM mode. If we ever do continue it, then those 4 players are forever remembered as greats of the Supernovas franchise. And with that, I believe that is it for the Supernovas franchise in FHM 8, at least for now. Like I said, could potentially make a return in FHM 9. I haven't decided yet, but I'm very attached to this team, I'll say that. So that should be about it for this one, and I was about to say in the next one, but there is no next one in this case. So thank you all for watching the Supernovas franchise mode, and I'll see you all in the next series.